You know what Tyson, Tarek, Brett, and Jody Threat has in common? They all support Scumbags Wrestling. And if you buy this poster or shirt, all the money goes to my charity. So please buy one.
Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. This is episode number 122, and I want to thank you for being a part of it, whether you're listening or watching right now, should I say, on our Facebook page, Scumbags Wrestling Podcast, over on our YouTube page, Scumbags Wrestling, and our Twitch page. I greatly appreciate you being with us, and hope you enjoy the show. If you want to be a part of it, send me a message, and I'll send you a link, and you can be a part of it with your thoughts and opinions as well. We're going to talk about the WWE Draft later on, along with having this week in history. I'm going to do some results from the past little while in wrestling and look forward to some of the upcoming events. Normally, I'd be joined by Steven, but he is in transit, I guess, to work. As we said, there's some issues, lovely COVID, and with his current profession, just all the health regulations probably drive him crazy. If he wasn't bald already, he'd probably pull out his hair. But yeah, we're going to soldier on and march through this. As I got some news and updates to go through before we get to the WWE Draft that's coming up starting tomorrow. Just give a couple of my picks of who I see going each way, and yeah, we'll do that. But joining me as always from Niagara Falls is Jonesy. How are you, Jonesy?
I'm pretty good, and it's great. I'm looking up because I have my camera down here, but that up there. So if I'm looking weird, that's why.
Okay, so how are things in the great Niagara Falls?
Pretty dead, actually, right now. I was down at Clifton Hill yesterday, and it is dead. It's like winter dead. It's different. It's really weird because it was like that back in April, but nothing was open. Now, I'd say 80% of the stuff down there is now all open, but there's no one around for it now. So there's definitely no problem with people getting COVID down here because no one's coming down here at the moment.
Unlike Toronto and Mississauga and Ottawa having those issues, which are causing a lot of confusion on numbers and who can you be with, where can you go.
The confusion, I believe, is because it's impossible to say, okay, everyone, you got to stay home. Nobody can work. Nobody can go out anywhere. They have to kind of go in the middle, and that's where confusion comes up. But really, it's just use your common sense. As long as you do that, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's like even if you're against the whole mask thing, do it just because, somebody else around you might be paranoid and concerned about their health or be immune deficient somehow, and you might not be saving yourself, but you're saving somebody else. So let's just dive into some of the events going on recently. Last night, AEW did their Jericho 30th anniversary tribute show, which did not come off as a tribute show at all, in my opinion. There was multiple videos sent in by different celebrities, including Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley, Lars Ulrich. I believe Lance Storm did something. Chavo Guerrero, Ultimo Dragon. There's a whole bunch more that I know I'm missing, but some were even surprised he was a wrestler. I think it was some of the musicians that he knows, which, name dropping and stuff like that is all great. But I kind of expected a little bit more of the way they were hyping up the show, and thought it'd be more Jericho-centric. Instead, it wasn't. We started off with Brian Cage against Will Hobbs, and these are two big guys, and sometimes big guy versus big guy just does not work well. Yeah, they're agile and stuff like that, but it's just like watching two rams go against each other, and you see that in nature videos, and they just keep on hitting each other, and eventually one goes down. Didn't really do much for me. Later on, I saw FTR beat Hybrid 2. There was a really big botch spot. The Best Friends came out and challenged FTR to the tag team titles for next week. Cody was challenged by Brody Lee for the TNT title. Brody was putting that up in a dog collar match. They were mentioning that this is the first time in like 37 years-ish that the dog collar match has really happened, and they were reflecting back to Piper and Valentine, and they ended up having Greg the Hammer Valentine in attendance. Yeah, he was just there, propped up. It almost seemed like.
How old did he look?
Well, he's about 70 years old now, I think.
And he still wrestles occasionally, does he not?
Still wrestles occasionally, I think.
See, I'd love.
It doesn't look like
he is worth. He is worth the $500 to get him to come, because he's timeless. His body isn't, but his spirit is.
Yeah, unfortunately, he looks like a manager I used to work with. Of course, that was a woman, but that's here nor there. Yeah, that happened. Of course, they are.
Did it take 15 minutes to warm her up?
I don't know, but they were doing different moves with the chain. John Silver got injured. Arn Anderson did a spine buster, which is rare for him to do different things in the ring right now. He shouldn't be doing anything probably with his health condition, but he pulled out a spine buster every once in a while. Both of them obviously get cut open, and I just question why blood and everything in this day and time, and especially on free TV. If you're going to do it, fine. You're trying to be different than WWE, but save it for the pay-per-views where it's special, not pulling it out because, we can. It just doesn't make any sense to me. In the end, Cody ended up getting the TNT title back. He had an impassioned speech at the end saying that he does it for the fans, and they wondered who he was going to defend against next. Plus, he mentioned that next week he was going to defend it on the anniversary show, and out came Orange Cassidy, gave the little lame thumbs up, and Cody gave him a full thumbs up, and so that was how they decided that that's going to be the match for next week. Big Swole took on Serena Deeb and got the victory, but I'm still not sold on Big Swole. I saw her at the Summit in Toronto last summer, or 2019 summer, during the SummerSlam weekend, and yeah, she's okay. I think Cedric Alexander's wife, but yeah, still not doing anything for me. I get it. She's number 2 contender. But yeah, that division needs a lot of work going forward. And then, of course, they had the Chris Jericho ceremony or celebration type thing. But he went against Luther and Serpentico, teaming with Jake Hager. And it was a dull match. It was probably the worst main event I've seen in AEW history, if not the worst match I've ever seen in AEW history. Apparently, Dr. Luther is a huge talent, but at age 51, he's really just not impressing me. We'll have to go back and see some of the stuff he did before, but yeah, it didn't really do too much for me to say, oh, Chris Jericho, 30 years, and this is awesome. I'm a Jericho fan. But then MJF came out and gave him a picture, and that part seemed really rushed at the end, and they're still hinting at MJF and Jericho eventually going against each other. They brought out a clown who promptly got the Judas effect after getting the picture of MJF smashed over him. Just really lackluster. So any thoughts on that? I know you didn't see it, but how I described it.
There's too many celebrations. It used to be, a celebration once in a blue. Now they're always celebrating something. And it's one wrestler. Who gives a shit?
Well, I can get it because of the fact that it is Jericho in 30 years and, being reinventing himself all those times. I like that. But just the fact that they didn't do anything. Like, if this had been in WWE, that whole show would have been multiple times of Jericho being out there, people doing different things, clips of Jericho. Yes, I know AEW doesn't have the history resources that WWE has of Jericho's career, but at least do something. Like, the match was really lame. I would have had a way better matchup for him and singles, not this tag team stuff. Just shelve it for 1 week and celebrate him properly.
Shouldn't he have maybe had a match against Orange Cassidy and actually win? Something to either get that feud going again or, have something on the line for him or something, or there's no point.
Yeah, it just seemed really lackluster in my opinion. But this week should have been the 1 year anniversary of AEW, but they did the Jericho thing. So they are bumping the 1 year anniversary show to next week. And right now they have 3 title matches set up, including FTR against the Best Friends, Cody against Orange for the TNT title, and Moxley defending against Archer after Archer had won the Casino Battle Royal. So that's what they're setting up already. I believe there's probably going to be a few more things and celebrating 1 year of AEW. What are your thoughts after 1 year of AEW? I'm not sure. I know you definitely watched some Dark, but just in general.
You know what? I think part of the issue is they bring in so many different wrestlers in, especially on Dark, that it's hard to get kind of a grip of where things might go. I do like the fact that they have new people on Dark, but I think they should limit it to how many new people are coming every month. Or again, that's like, oh, so anybody can join the show now. But all in all, I don't. Well, why are you doing that then? Like,
yeah.
Me personally, I like Dark, but I have no idea what it's really doing for your show, because it's not really furthering any storylines or anything. It's like what WCW Saturday Night turned out to be near the end, where it didn't really matter what was going on there. And they either need to do it as 2 separate shows. Again, you don't need storylines, but you need something to gel everything together, where Dark is just, a whole bunch of matches. And again, I like it, but
do you really need 11 matches of non-consequential?
No, you don't. And And in a way, I don't know why they don't then like release a match a day or something. So there's always new matches every single day. You can say there's always a new match every single day.
Leading up to Dynamite on Wednesdays.
Yeah. And heck, if you're doing 11, 12 matches, you only need 5 more days of matches. So you need 5 matches. So make 6 matches actually somewhat important. And then the 5 that are every day, they're just, here's someone new. Here's a tryout guy. And people can vote which one they like. And then they get to actually be on the actual dark. And then if they like them on that, they actually get to make a step up. Like a people's champion that would represent, I don't know, something. But the wrestling is not, honestly, the wrestling I think is pretty good. It's just a little sloppy at times, but what? I'm glad it's there because it's something other than the WWF product, which I'm fine watching the matches, but I rather just turn everything on mute because as a fan, I don't give a crap what your storylines are about anymore. Just give me some decent wrestling.
Yeah, I can get that. I'd rather see more in-ring action. My big problem with AEW, unfortunately, is the lack of consistency and the fact that they said they were going to be something alternative, and then it's almost WWE light.
You know what? I think all businesses say that. We're something different. Well, no, you're the same thing. You're just the copy. What makes you different is inventing new mousetraps. That's what makes you different. Give something that no one else is doing, or very few are doing, but they're not doing that. It's just, again, to a new fan, a lot of that stuff would be great. But as someone that's watched it for 30 some odd years, you're just like, yeah, you can compare it to other storylines that have happened. So
I think my other complaint about AEW is the fact that they built it on these guys from the Elite, the Young Bucks, Cody, Kenny Omega, and all them. Even giving them executive vice president positions and stuff like that. Tony Khan being a huge fan of these guys, but a mark with some money, so that's always good. But the hype that those guys had before coming to AEW, you would have that draw you in as, Kenny Omega, the number 1 guy in PWI 500. The 7-star matches that Dave Meltzer ends up giving him during his runs in New Japan. And then you see these guys come over and start their own business, basically, and they're almost a shell of themselves.
Because it's a different market here.
But at the same time, it's almost bait and switch because you say, oh, this company is built around these guys that are internet indie darlings, essentially, and then you give something totally different. Where are those 7-star matches?
I think again, they can't go out there every night and give these great matches. What I've seen on one of the last pay-per-views of AEW with the tag match, Kenny Omega teaming up with what's his name there. Honestly, I thought that match was pretty damn good. Was it like Kenny Omega 5-star quality? No, but it was definitely 3 to 3.5. It was a decent match. And when you consider what his position is in the company, he can't be both. You can't be running things and be performing and be 100% at both. You just can't.
That was the problem WCW had, because at the same time, you had people in high positions booking themselves in great positions. And it's always a bad thing to sort of do that. You need a retired talent who knows the business to be leading the current generation.
They need like a coach that's for a team. You can be in the office and everything. You can even participate and be on the field, but you got to be a DH or something. You have to, and I think in a way, they've kind of done that. At least Kenny Omega has. He has his own storylines, but it's not like he's winning all these titles and is on like always on the main event. So I think he's doing a pretty good job of that. I think it just people are too critical, where again, a place like AEW has a lot of comedy wrestling in it. I don't think it's that bad. It's just, I don't know. It's like having a meal where the burger was great, but the fries weren't great. As long as the whole meal doesn't suck, you can live with it. And to me, that's what AEW is, where some of it's not going to be good, but some of it's really good. There's some good matches. Like on Dark, I'm sorry, you watch Dark, you're guaranteed at least to get 1-2 really good matches. And actually, in a way, when I watch Dark, it's almost like watching indie wrestling, where you don't really know the storyline and stuff like that. You don't really care. You can miss the other stuff. You can just watch that. And that's kind of what I did with Saturday night, WCW Saturday night, because we didn't get Nitro. Couldn't watch it until the very end, maybe the last year or two we had access, but before we didn't. So I'm watching Saturday night, and I didn't need to really watch Nitro on that, because they'd show you a clip or two, but it was mostly just about showing off some wrestlers, and that's about it.
Yeah. Okay, so that's AEW for next week, their anniversary show. 3 title matches happening. We'll see what happens adding on that to make it a big show. Looking at some other news, this past weekend, Impact had a pay-per-view on Fight in their Impact app, Victory Road. And so the Rascals defeated Triple XL. Brian Myers beat Tommy Dreamer. Willie Mack defeated Raju by countout. Tennille Dashwood beat Jordan Grace. Heath and Rhino won against Reno Scum, and I guess the stipulation in there was that if they won, Heath would finally get a contract with Impact. Of course, we know he had one, but their storyline-wise, he's one of the last guys to sign that were let go in April by WWE. Josh Alexander beat Alex Shelley, Ace Austin, and Carl Anderson. All 4 of these guys had their tag team partners with them at ringside, and that's leading into tag team title match 4-way coming up at the end of the month at Bound for Glory. But they just did a singles match with the 4 of them. Deonna Purrazzo beat Susie to retain the Knockouts title, and Eric Young beat Eddie Edwards to retain the Impact title. Now, as I said, that's leading to Impact Wrestling presenting Bound for Glory, happening on Saturday, October 24th on pay-per-view. I believe also on Fight TV app. And so far, Rohit Raju is going to be defending the X Division title in a scramble match featuring Chris Bay, Jordan Grace, Trey, TJP, and Willie Mack. There's also going to be the Motor City Machine Guns taking on the Good Brothers, the North, and the tag team of Ace Austin and Madman Fulton in a 4-way tag team title match. Deonna Purrazzo is defending the Knockouts title against Kylie Ray, and Eric Young is defending the Impact title against Rich Swann. So 4 matches, all with title implications going on, and that's going to be on October 24th. The next night on October 25th is going to be WWE presenting their last event in the Thunderdome at the Amway Center in Florida, and that is going to be Hell in a Cell. Now, currently, Jey Uso is going to go against his cousin Roman Reigns with the Universal title on the line, and Randy Orton is going to challenge Drew McIntyre yet again, and that's going to be in Hell in a Cell. I believe both those matches are Hell in a Cell, going to be in the cage, and there's talk that they're actually going to do a third Hell in a Cell match, this time also with Bayley and Sasha, because of how much their feud is gone. Tomorrow night during the draft, Sasha has challenged Bayley for the women's title. I'm seeing it going to a no contest, which is going to lead to that Hell in a Cell. So those are some of the events coming up. Full Gear is next month for AEW, I believe November 7th, if I'm not mistaken. They'll be building up to that after next week's anniversary show. So
are they going to still use the god-awful red cage?
Probably, which I'm wondering with the way the Amway Center is and the Thunderdome, if every match is going to end up somehow in that cage, because it doesn't look like there's enough roof space to lift that cage up and down to have non Hell in a Cell matches in it. I'm looking forward to seeing how they work around this whole thing. But originally that was supposed to be, I believe, November 1st. But because their
isn't that a large arena that they're doing it
with
at?
the way they have the Thunderdome structured, they might have to lift up the.
They might move some stuff back. Maybe that's why it kind of works out that would be their last night. It's for the pay-per-view. They're going to move stuff around.
Yeah, because originally they were supposed to be there until the 31st. So they'll probably do Raw and SmackDown still, and the after effect of Hell in a Cell, but we're still waiting to find out where they're moving to, unless they get extended at the Amway Center. But that's why Hell in a Cell got moved from the 1st to the 25th. So looking at some of the other things, though, last weekend, NXT TakeOver 31, that happened on WWE Network on this past Sunday. Damian Priest retained the NXT North American Championship over Johnny Gargano. I thought it was one of the better matches of the night. You can go back and listen to Chris Maloney and I on CWN Review. We recorded that after the show, and I put it up on our podcast stuff, so you can listen to the audio version of what Chris Maloney and I talked about on that. But I thought it was one of the better matches of the night. It's definitely a way, if Johnny Gargano cannot be in the main event, he might as well be curtain jerking and starting and setting the pace. Kushida came out doing his Marty McFly look. Velveteen Dream was doing Doc Brown, and Kushida picked up the victory in a very hard-hitting match. Kushida was very aggressive in the match. Isaiah Scott unfortunately lost to Escobar. I thought the Cruiserweight title was going to change hands on that one. Io Shirai beat Candice LeRae. Johnny Gargano got involved, and it wasn't enough for Candice to bring the title back home to the Gargano homestead. But after the event, Toni Storm announced that she's coming back. There was a video wall. And then after that, the lights turned green, and they showed the other person who was returning. And with the way Io Shirai was still in the ring, you knew it was going to be a female. And in this case, it was Ember Moon, revealing that she was coming back to NXT. She had an Achilles heel injury, I believe, and must be healed up from that. And the main event had Finn Balor retain over Kyle O'Reilly of the NXT Championship. It was a hard-hitting match between them. So hard-hitting that actually Finn Balor broke his jaw in 2 places. But I guess also there's talk that they had to call an audible and finish it up early. So Finn ended up retaining. And he's due to be out about 6 to 8 weeks, which isn't enough for them to take the title off him. After the show ended, though, Rich Holland came out with Adam Cole on his shoulder. Cole had been all beat up and he got tossed over the barrier. The other two members of Undisputed Era came out and were wondering what happened. I think they're going to be a split between the Undisputed Era coming up. But they also announced, I'm not sure if you heard this one, Jonesy, that on October 28th, one of the editions of NXT on a Wednesday night going against AEW Dynamite will be a special Halloween Havoc edition, and it's hosted by Shotzi Blackheart.
That's interesting. Using old like WCW, NWA pay-per-view and go here.
Well, WWE's been doing that a little bit lately as counter programming to AEW. In July, they did 2 weeks of NXT's Great American Bash. AEW countered in January. Somehow Cody ended up getting the rights to using Bash at the Beach. And one of the January editions of AEW was that. WWE's brought back Starrcade, but it's more been a house show with a 1 hour network special. So who knows what other events they can bring back. And
you know what? With the Halloween Havoc, as long as they bring in the old and cool inflatable, then I'm in.
Yeah, a lot of people have been saying that. And I can see that happening considering they did a In Your House takeover and they had the old In Your House set on as the entranceway for that takeover.
Oh, nice.
So WWE is doing a little bit of nostalgia in that regards and using it with NXT. I'm okay with it to a certain extent, where it's about time that after 20 some odd years, the name Halloween Havoc is being brought back. Like, they own these trademarks. Why have they not used them beforehand instead of just being
because it's all associated with that era, that day. But yeah, why don't they pull those out? Especially when you have the network. It's like
it's just some specials. I know Vince has that whole "I didn't create it, so I don't use it" type deal, but you know, that's what people are clamoring for. If you look at the stuff, the ratings on or whatever is downloaded on the network, I bet you a lot of the nostalgia stuff is being seen. And you also look at the fact that Conrad Thompson has all these different podcasts with Jim Ross, Arn Anderson, Eric Bischoff, Tony Schiavone, and Bruce Pritchard. They're not talking about current stuff. They're talking about nostalgia and going back in time. And they have some of the top rated, most downloaded podcasts in wrestling, including even Jim Cornette. And they're all talking about history. And if you're,
you know what, between you and me, you know, I tried to listen to Jim Cornette's podcast. I can't stand him. I can see why some people would like him, but he swears way too much for my liking, and I like Conrad and Schiavone. So yeah. So anyways, there you go.
Yeah, Jim Cornette can rub people the wrong way. I've kind of gotten into the just the experience part, the drive-through, where it's the Q&A, and he does a review thing, but I don't think I could listen to both his shows. I haven't gotten into the Arn Anderson one. I love Bruce Pritchard and JR especially. But yeah, that's what people want, is the nostalgia. Let's look into current stuff. Running down some of the news. Definitely not all of it, but a lot of it's going to be WWE based. But yeah, Renee Young is going to be back doing a pre-show before next week's SmackDown as part of the season premiere of SmackDown. Fox is doing a 1-year anniversary of them coming over, but in this case, she still works for Fox. She's not necessarily doing a WWE contracted thing. So I think she's even going to be doing it as Renee Paquette, not Renee Young. And they're going to have Booker T with her doing a hype up for the season premiere of SmackDown.
You know what this could be is Renee Young may be left in a kind of an agreement because how things are right now. Why not let Fox scoop her up and pay her damn wage, and she can still do stuff for you? I mean, it's a win-win.
Yeah, and she said she really got to the end of what she could really see herself doing in WWE, and if she's able to work for a legit network like Fox and do more than just wrestling, she could be on the sidelines doing football or doing hockey, because I know she loves hockey, Nashville Predators and stuff like that. So there's a lot of options if she were to get that job with Fox permanently, like beyond wrestling.
Now, when you say legit, don't you mean legit with Fox?
Well, their Fox News is questionable, but as far as sports channels, between that or ESPN, she did work for The Score here in Canada, so she has that experience. But on a big national stage like Fox Sports or ESPN, that'd be great. You know, Jonathan Coachman got to do it too, and I think Jonathan Gresham did too. Anyways, WWE is taking over the Twitch accounts of their superstars and going to incorporate this into their somewhat contracts, even though they're independent contractors. They're going to take the money from it and give them only a percentage of it, which I guess they don't want these. We talked about it before, the third-party deals, and I get needing to make sure that if you're representing WWE or using your WWE name, they should have some sort of control over it so that they know that they're not being embarrassed. But I don't know about the whole money aspect of it, because at the same time, this is them on their free time. But then again, they could be being paid by WWE to work 125 dates. And because of COVID, they're now only working 60 dates, including TVs and pay-per-views. So there has to be some sort of balance. I'm not sure I'm totally on board with that whole deal, but that's something they need to figure out with their contracts.
I agree.
WWE is still looking to take the money in the bank briefcase off of Otis. I guess they realized that putting it on a comedy guy who's in a tag team wasn't probably their best option, even though they were high on Otis beforehand and even put him in that role with or romance with Mandy Rose. But who knows? They're looking for a way of getting it off him, and hopefully soon. Dominic Mysterio did an interview, and he said that during that whole custody story with Eddie and Ray, that teachers and kids at his school were even asking, "Who's your real dad?" And he's just like, this guy, Oscar, Rey Mysterio, that's my dad. And people didn't get that there was just a storyline and stuff like that. He mentioned, though, that when he was working there with Eddie was always giving him candy and stuff like that. And he just kind of wished that Eddie was able to see his debut match that he had at SummerSlam, but obviously knows he wasn't able to. But it would have been nice, considering at the age of 8 years old, he was working with Eddie Guerrero.
So why doesn't WWE do a special cartoon where it's the ghost of Eddie Guerrero is in the crowd watching Dominic and helps him?
Hologram?
Well, you can hologram it, or do it like a cartoon, like a little cartoon special.
Yeah. There's still a chance, though, that he might be put into a mask. He finds it kind of weird because he is already out there. People know what he looks like, but doing the lucha tradition, he would be given a mask, and his dad already trademarked the name Prince Mysterio because Rey means king, so he would be Prince Mysterio. So they might eventually get around to doing that whole storyline.
Yeah, I could see that as a good storyline.
Yeah, former WWE diva Jazz announced that she's retiring from the ring. She also worked for ECW and recently in the NWA. Wade Barrett, who recently returned to NXT to be a commentator, said that the only match that he would be interested in doing would be against his friend Drew McIntyre. WrestleMania 37 is not going to be in LA after all. They were doing the whole Hollywood type deal. But if you look on their schedule for that venue, WWE is not listed during that time. And WWE has been able to get out of it, especially with the whole COVID thing. California is not one of those states that are allowing people to congregate in large groups, but Florida is. And just this week, Ron DeSantis, I believe, is the senator, one of the top guys for Florida, and he's opened it up to stage 3 of business, which is allowing places to be at full capacity. Apparently, he's told the football teams that you can bring in as many fans as you want, and won't be long until Vince takes them up on that offer and opens up the floodgates to try and get fans back in. And they've apparently agreed to bump WrestleMania 36, which was supposed to be in Tampa, to make it up to Tampa and do it at WrestleMania 37. So there's bound to be some fans allowed at that event. And they're going to use the same idea that they had for last year's or this past year's WrestleMania. And finally, Mustafa Ali was revealed as the leader of Retribution. Hopefully they'll be able to explain some of that. People thought he was the hacker over on SmackDown. So that would give him access to turning on and off the lights type deal. And Mercedes Martinez could be out of the group already because she wasn't even there this past week. Mia Yim wasn't either, but Mia Yim has changed her name to Retaliation or something like that on Twitter. And she was included in a tweet along with the other guys, but everybody else, Mercedes Martinez was not. So we'll see this coming week what happens with Ali being the leader and what goes on with Retribution. Now, the last spot that I want to talk about before going to Jonesy with this week in history is the fact that this Friday, tomorrow night's SmackDown, is the night 1 of the WWE Draft. And then night 2 is going to be the following Monday on Monday Night Raw, October 12th. So, with that being said, I was hoping that we would have had Steven here and discuss some picks, but you can definitely send me your picks on our Facebook page or email me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. Any of the things running along the bottom here, and contact me with your ideas. I'll be posting something on our Facebook page and continuing the discussion there. But I decided to pick 5 guys or 5 people I could see moving from Raw over to SmackDown, and that includes Kevin Owens, Aleister Black, Ricochet, Billy Kay, and Zelina Vega. Now, Raw has already gotten a bunch of people from SmackDown, but I do see some people moving still from SmackDown officially over to Raw, including AJ Styles, Braun Strowman, Big E, John Morrison, and Lacey Evans. Now, be a good move, I think, for Morrison and Big E, get away from their tag teams, but they need to sort of build up a tag team division as well. So hopefully some people are going to be shifted around. I know NXT has a strong tag team division, especially over in the UK side of things. So maybe they'll be able to bring them over too and mix things up. But I also thought, who could be brought up from NXT and put on to a main roster, even though, right now NXT has been basically main rostered since getting a USA deal. But I thought Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, Chelsea Green, and Velveteen Dream could see them debut on Raw or SmackDown. Now, moving from Raw or SmackDown down to NXT, I was thinking Bo Dallas, because everybody was hoping he was going to be the mystery guy showing up on TakeOver, and Chad Gable. This guy was really good with American Alpha, but after they split up that team, he's been lost in the shuffle so bad. And yeah, Shorty G, really lame. I hope he gets moved over to NXT, gets a new tag team partner maybe, and gets rebuilt, somewhat like TJ Wilson or Tyson Kidd did, and even Cesaro and a couple others in the past, and even Finn Balor has moved down to lift up that brand and himself and not get lost in shuffle. So those are my ideas for who could move tomorrow night and Monday on the draft presentations. Didn't want to go through the whole roster and go, oh, this person, this person, this person. But those are my 5 floating both ways. Give me your thoughts. As I said, I'm going to post it on our Facebook page and make it a discussion thread. So hopefully you can join in, and we'll have a great discussion leading into tomorrow night, which, though, as we wrap up this episode, brings me to Jonesy and This Week in History. Take it away.
All right, This Week in History. We're going to, for the first date here, we're going to try something new. There'll be a few questions in here, and Shawn, you can see how quickly you can answer these ones.
Okay.
They will not be hard, or not too hard. So we're going to start with October 2nd, 27 years ago today. Eastern Championship Wrestling presented NWA Bloodfest Part 2. In the main event, Sabu defeated Shane Douglas to win the NWA ECW Heavyweight Championship. Public Enemy, Grunge, and Flyboy Rocco Rock defeated Ian and Axel Rotten and Bad Company, Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka in a 3-way steel cage match. The question is, Tommy Dreamer made his ECW at that event and lost to this guy who was also his ECW debut. Was it A, the Tasmaniac? Was it B, Tajiri? Was it C, the Blue Meanie? Or was it D, none of the below?
Let's go with the Tasmaniac.
Sir, you are 1 for 1. All right, let's continue. 21 years ago today, Psychosis is awarded the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. Lenny Lane, the champion at the time, was pulled from WCW programming due to the controversial gay character. 21 years ago today, WWF presented the UK exclusive Rebellion, Birmingham, England. Question time. Who is the person who booked the show? Hint, this was his last WWF event he would book.
What year is that?
That would have been, let's say, between 97, 99. Well, I'll give you a couple of the matches that were there. We had Edge and Christian defeat the Acolytes, Farouk and Bradshaw, and the Hollies, Hardcore and Crash, in a triangle match. And the main event, which also has a question attached to it, Triple H versus The Rock in the steel cage match for the WWF Championship. So there's
was that one of Russo's last events?
That would be Russo's last, yes. So you're 2 for 2. Now, the question on the Triple H versus The Rock in a steel cage match for the WWF Championship, did Triple H win or lose that match?
I'm going to say he ended up losing that match.
No, he actually won that match and retained the WWF Championship. So you are 2 for 3. All right. 20. Why is it? Okay. It's only showing me one page. 20 years ago on Nitro from San Francisco, Booker T defeated Jeff Jarrett to win. And you're going to have to give me a second because I don't know why. But my PDF only has one page on it when there's a lot more. So I just have to open that file, which will just take us a quick second, and then we'll just continue on with the history.
Okay, while he's opening that,
here we go. Go ahead. Yeah, I opened it.
While he's opening that and getting everything back organized, just want to remind people that we still have those T-shirts and the posters on sale with the great logo that was designed by Nigel Lewis of NCL Studios. It has 22 stars of the independent wrestling scene. As you saw at the beginning of the show, Steven Spice was wearing that shirt. It's comic book style. And as he said, if you purchase your shirts or posters, the money raised from them is going to go to curing malformation research at Sick Kids Hospital. So if you want a shirt for $30 or a poster for $15, they're 11 by 17. You can contact me at scumbagswrestling@gmail.com. I accept e-transfers, and I might even deliver it to you personally, depending on where you are.
Ooh.
So back to this week in history.
Okay, we're still on October 2nd. 20 years ago today on Nitro from San Francisco, Booker T defeated Jeff Jarrett to win the vacated WCW World Heavyweight Championship in a San Francisco 49ers match. Remember, Russo won the belt on Nitro, so he could vacate it for that. 14 years ago today on Raw, Jeff Hardy defeated Johnny Nitro to win the WWE Intercontinental Championship. 13 years ago, John Cena was diagnosed with a torn right pectoral muscle and had to vacate the WWE Championship belt. The tear occurred during a botched hip toss in a match with Mr. Kennedy from the previous night. So here's the question. What pay-per-view did Cena make his return at?
That would be the Royal Rumble.
And there you go. You're 3 for 4. Very good. And I believe that was the last question there. Oh, no, there is one more. Ooh, how nice. So 9 years ago, the Hell in the Cell was featured. The first 3-way Hell in the Cell match in company history. Mark Henry defeated Randy Orton in the Hell in the Cell to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. Beth Phoenix defeated Kelly Kelly to win the WWE Divas Championship. And Alberto Del Rio defeated CM Punk and John Cena in this type of match. What type of match was it, Shawn?
Wasn't it a street fight?
No, it was a Hell in the Cell match. You're 3 for 5. 8 years ago, WWE taped the first episode of the main event. In the featured bout, WWE champion CM Punk defeated World Heavyweight Champion Sheamus in a champion versus champion non-title match. What was the point of that? Today would have been the 54th birthday of Rodney Agatupu Noah, best known to wrestling fans as Yokozuna. Now, is that a Noah or Noi or Noai?
Anawani.
And a Noani. Wow, that's a hard one. But of course, best known to wrestling fans as Yokozuna. He was born in San Francisco. That guy, Rodney, grew up in the famed wrestling family and was trained by his uncles, the Wino Samoans. He wrestled in Japan and Mexico. He entered the AWA as Coquina Maximus. And that guy is an AWA lawyer for breaking the leg and ending the career of Greg Gagne. He was 34. The question is, what was Rodney's wrestling name in Japan and Mexico? Was it A, Fatu Extra Large, B, the Great Flabba, C, the Great Coquina, or D, the Great Max?
The Great Coquina.
There you go.
And I listened to Grill and JR.
Okay, cool. So you're 4 and 6. You passed. You did great. One of them was a little tricky question, but that's why I did it, because it's funny. So here we go. We're going to move on to October 3rd. 35 years ago today, WWF taped the second edition of Saturday Night's Main Event. The show featured the wedding of Uncle Elmer. Hulk Hogan defeated Nikita Volkov, I'm really messing up, to retain the WWF Championship. Andre the Giant and Tony Atlas defeated Big John Studd and King Kong Bundy via disqualification. 15 years ago, WWE presented Raw Homecoming. This was WWE's return to its original cable home, the USA Network, after 5 years with Spike TV. Of note, this was the first ever 3-hour episode of Raw. That was 15 years ago. Also of note, Stone Cold Steve Austin stunned the entire McMahon family on that event. Edge defeated Matt Hardy in a Money in the Bank ladder match. And as a result, Matt Hardy was kicked from the Raw roster. Ric Flair and Triple H defeated Carlito and Chris Masters. A post-match, Triple H turned on Ric Flair, shattering the last ties of Evolution. 7 years ago today, WWE signed Lee Van Dale to a WWE developmental contract. Van Dale was a former cheerleader for the Los Angeles Lakers and New England Patriots. She is a second-generation wrestler, as her father, Paul Van Dale, was enhancement talent for the WWF in the 90s. Today, you may know her as
Carmella.
Excellent. All right. 5 years ago today, WWE presented live from Madison Square Garden. The event was Brock Lesnar's first match in the building in 10 and a half years when he left WWE following WrestleMania 20. It was also the 25th anniversary of Chris Jericho's professional wrestling debut. It's a happy, which doesn't go with 4 years. 5 years ago, 25th. Yeah, so it does. Okay, never mind. It's a happy 37th birthday to John Randall Hennigan, known as Johnny Nitro, then John Morrison, then Johnny Mundo, blah, blah, blah. The Los Angeles-born Hennigan is best known for his time in WWE, which began after he had won Tough Enough 3 in 2002. His first notable appearance came as Johnny Blaze, an assistant to Raw General Manager Eric Bischoff. He eventually adopted the name Johnny Nitro, complete with this theme. He came down to this theme. Do you remember the theme that Johnny Nitro would come down to?
The old WCW Nitro theme.
Excellent. Oh, there you go. And see how easy it is to get trivia questions out of this stuff. It would have been an 81 birthday to Joseph Melton James, a.k.a. Bullet Bob Armstrong. He had served in the United States Marine Corps and was stationed in Korea. After leaving the military, James worked as a firefighter. While bench pressing a dumbbell in a gym in Georgia, the bench Armstrong was on broke and the weight severely damaged his nose. It was almost torn off completely off. While undergoing plastic surgery, Armstrong would don a mask and begin using the ring name The Bullet. Even after his recovery, when Armstrong ditched the mask, the nickname stuck, and that's how he got the name The Bullet. Armstrong would train and tag with his 4 sons, Joseph, who wrestled and referees as Scott, Robert, who wrestled as Brad. He died November 2012. Stephen Bryan, of course, Road Dogg. Armstrong went into semi-retirement in the 90s, appearing occasionally at events in Georgia and Alabama, and serving as the commissioner of Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He also worked for the Continental Wrestling Federation and Southeast Championship Wrestling, the 2-time NWA Southern Heavyweight champion and winner of over 60 regional championships, most of them in the NWA affiliates. Was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame in 2011. He died shortly before his 81st birthday. October 4th, 45 years ago, a big one, a twin-engine Cessna 310 plane heading to Legion Stadium in Wilmington, North Carolina, from Charlotte, piloted by Vietnam War veteran Joseph Michael Farkas, carried Ric Flair, David Crockett, Bob Ruggers, Tim Woods, and Johnny Valentine. To lighten the plane's heavy load, the plane The pilot chose to dump fuel instead of redistributing weight through the plane. The choice proved costly as the plane ran out of gas, sank from about 4,000 feet, and crashed just 100 yards short up the runway, missing a nearby water tower. The injuries. David Crockett suffered head and arm injuries and lost 2 teeth. Bruggers, Valentine, Woods, and Flair all suffered back injuries. Woods also suffered a concussion and bruised ribs. Bruggers would undergo back surgery and have a steel rod inserted in his spinal column and decided to retire. Apparently, he could have still wrestled, but he chose that was enough. Flair's back was broken in 3 places and returned to the ring just 8 months later. And that's why he does land the way he does, because to protect that back of his. Valentine perhaps suffered the worst. In addition to his broken back, a bone fragment became embedded in his spinal column. A clamp would need to be inserted to hold the bones in his back together, rendering Valentine paralyzed and confined to a wheelchair for the remainder of his life. Vargas also suffered back injuries and went into a coma. He never came out of it, succumbing to his injuries just 2 months later. He was only 28. 38 years ago in Charlotte, North Carolina, Sergeant Slaughter defeated Ricky Steamboat in the finals of a tournament to crown the new NWA United States champion. The tournament was commissioned when Wahoo McDaniel was forced to vacate the title due to injuries suffered by... Do you know who it was by?
Nope.
All right, that's okay. That doesn't count because I didn't give you no clues. But Abdullah the Butcher. I should have said suffered by. He likes forks. 21 years ago on Nitro from Kansas City, Disco Inferno defeated Psychosis to win the WCW Cruiserweight Championship. On that same show, Bret Hart defeated Chris Benoit in what was billed as a tribute match to the late Owen Hart. This was Bret's first bout since his brother's passing back in May. One thing about Chris Benoit that I will say is I will always say his name because I can separate his wrestling history from his real life. And to me, that's why I say Chris Benoit's name, because I'm referring to the wrestler, not what became of him. 15 years ago today, WWE presented Hell in a Cell, which featured 3 Hell in a Cell matches. The Undertaker defeated CM Punk in a Hell in a Cell match to win the World Heavyweight Championship. Orton defeated Xena in a Hell in a Cell match. That one actually took 21 minutes and 24. DX, Triple H and Shawn Michaels defeated The Legacy, Cody Rhodes and Ted DiBiase in a tag team Hell in a Cell match. And it's a happy 72 birthday to former WWE president and CEO, born Linda Edwards. She was an only child in a military family. Oh, I lost my spot. Darn you, cat. In North Carolina. She met her future husband, Vince McMahon, at age 13 and got married to him shortly after her high school graduation in 66. Linda worked for a corporate law firm in the D.C. area. In 79, Vince founded Titan Sports, and Linda worked at the Cape Cod Coliseum cooking sandwiches for the attendees at the events. Linda was brought along for administration purposes, and her knowledge of intellectual property rights eventually made her a valuable asset. Negotiation of the company's first toy line in 1984, expanding the audience of the product, and the WWF television deal in 2000. Linda would become the WWF's president in 93 and CEO in 1997. In 2009, McMahon stepped down from her post as WWE CEO to run for the United States Senate, which failed twice. Now she is currently working with the Trumpster in some sort of passion. Last I heard that she had something to do with his campaign. So she's got a big battle there. October 5th, 23 years ago today, Brian Pillman was unfortunately found dead in a hotel room in Bloomington, Minnesota, just hours before WWF Bad Blood. He was just 35 years old. On the same day as Pillman's death, WWF presented Bad Blood in Your House, which featured the very first Hell in a Cell match, of which Shawn Michaels won over The Undertaker due to the debut of Kane. Vince announced the death of Pillman and was the final pay-per-view of McMahon as the WWF's lead commentator. Also on the card, Owen Hart defeated Farouk to win the vacant WWF IC championship, and it was vacated because Owen Hart accidentally broke Austin's neck. So that's kind of how that happened. 21 years ago today, at a SmackDown taping in Uniondale, New York, Dare Drozdov was seriously injured following a botched powerbomb by D'Lo Brown. Darren Wood suffered 2 fractured discs in his neck as a result of landing on his head, an injury that initially left him quadriplegic. 20 years ago today, Annabelle Gonzalez Hernandez, best known as Juventud Guerrera, was arrested following an incident at a hotel lobby in Australia. Yes, it's another arrest story from the files of Juventud Guerrero. Guerrera, sorry. He was charged with 3 counts of assault, disorderly conduct, obstruction, and drug possession, and 2 counts of assaulting police. He only received a $3,000 fine. He avoided jail time because it was proven he was the sole supporter of his family. He was released by his employer, WCW, very shortly after that. 18 years ago today, ROH presented Glory by Honor from the Murphy Recreation Center in Philadelphia. 16 years ago today, at a SmackDown taping in Boston, Massachusetts, Carlos Colon Jr., a.k.a. Carlito, made his WWE television debut and defeated John Cena to win the WWE United States Championship. 11 years ago...
People who don't want to be cool.
Yes, that's right. You know what? If I would have thought if I had an apple, maybe I could have spit some stuff at the computer, but...
That gets a little messy.
It does get a little messy. 11 years ago today on Raw from Pennsylvania, The Miz defeated Kofi Kingston to win the WWE United States Championship. 6 years ago today, at a Lucha Underground taping in Los Angeles, Prince Puma defeated Johnny Mundo in Aztec Warfare to become the first Lucha Underground champion. October 6, 23 years ago today, WWF's Raw is War gets stomped in the ratings by WCW Nitro, but the WWF show does create the bigger impression with a pair of controversial moments. In one segment, Jim Cornette shoots on WCW. In another segment, Vince McMahon interviewed Melanie Pillman, widowed just a day after her husband Brian was found dead in his hotel room. The interview segment would include asking the widow Marlena how she was going to support her kids. The interview won a Wrestling Observer Award for Most Disgusting Promotional Tactic. 17 years ago today, Robert James Gino Morella, best known to the wrestling world as Gorilla Monsoon, died of heart failure brought on by complications of diabetes in his home in Willingboro Township, New Jersey. He was 62. Interesting tidbit about Morella. He worked in construction. One of the buildings he helped construct was the Rochester War Memorial, where he's now a part of the Wrestling Hall of Fame. 13 years ago in Edison, New Jersey, Nigel McGuinness defeated Takeshi Morishima to win the ROH World Championship. It's a happy 56th birthday to Dixie Carter Salinas. Born in Dallas, Carter graduated from the University of Mississippi in 1986 with a Bachelor's of Business Administration and worked as an intern for advertising firm Levison and Hill. And at just age 32, became the firm's vice president. 3 years prior, she started her own business in Nashville, focusing on sports and music. She bailed TNA out when its primary financial backer had some legal issues. Her parents, who owned Panda Energy out of Dallas, purchased 71% stake in TNA for $250,000. Its company name changed from J Sports and Entertainment, and it would be changed to TNA Entertainment. I wonder if they, regret doing that deal.
Probably. But now it's owned by Anthem out of Toronto.
Yes, that's right. August 7th, 46 years ago today, Olympic wrestler Ken Patera, the four-time national weightlifting champion and third-place finisher in the 77 World's Strongest Man competition, announces his retirement from Olympic weightlifting and goes on to moderately, wow, that's a hard one. Not to actually, I know what it means, but to say, successfully wrestling career, winning the WWF Intercontinental Championship and the NWA Missouri Heavyweight Championship in 1980, and the AWA World Tag Championship twice, and was voted Pro Wrestling Illustrated's most hated wrestler in 77 and 81. And that actually a little surprised me. I didn't think Ken Patera was ever really a bad guy, but apparently he was. So I might watch a couple matches when he was a bad guy to see how that looked. 30 years ago today, Rockin' Robin defeated Sensational Sherry to win the WWF Women's Championship. She would be the final champion before the title was deactivated in 1990. Of course, in 93, the belt made a return with a London play. Do you want to finish this story? Because there's a lot to it.
Well, I was going to ask you.
Yeah.
Who is Rockin' Robin related to?
Oh, yes, Rockin' Robin. I've been told this before. I wanna say Jake the Snake.
She is the sister of Jake the Snake Roberts and
there you go.
Sam Houston.
Sam Houston. Okay, so of course in 93 the belt made a return with the London Blaze. Then again it was deactivated when it was trashed, but it came back in 95 with Jacqueline, then changed to the WWE Women's Championship belt. Les Cool were the last to hold the belt in May 2010, though McCool was unofficially a co-champion and defended the belt in place of Layla. In 2010, McCool defeated Melina to unify the Women's Championship with the WWE Divas Championship, which briefly became known as the Unified WWE Divas Championship. So, 22 years ago today, Public Enemy, Rocco Rock and Johnny Grunge defeated the Gangstas, New Jack and Mustafa. Do you remember what New Jack and Mustafa used to do? Except, New Jack stabbed people, but I'm not sure what Mustafa did.
No.
And Raven and Stevie Richards, who just won the tag belts in a previous match that night against the Pitbulls in a three-way dance to win the ECW World Tag Team Championship for the fourth time. I don't like it when they do a kind of that, especially when it's in the same building. It's kind of like, it seems almost like you've been robbed, because to see it change hands is cool, but twice it's kind of like, in the same night, I don't know. If it was say like a WrestleMania that could have happened at 10, I'd say that would be fine. But anyways, 21 years ago today on Raw is War, the Legion of Doom, Hawk and Animal defeated the Godwins to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. And 17 years ago today, Chris Adams was shot and killed during a drunken brawl with a friend at his home in Waxahachie. That's a hard one to say, Texas. He was 46. And it's a happy 32nd birthday to Chelsea Bonin, best known to wrestling fans as, or it might be Celeste. Is he Celeste? Or
Celeste.
I think it's Celeste, yeah.
Celeste.
I pre-read most of this, but oh wow, I'm having trouble today with my mouth is like, it's awful. I'm drinking tons of water here. 42 years ago today in Dallas, Texas, Evelyn Stevens defeated the fabulous Moolah to win the NWA Women's World Championship. Evelyn's short 2 days back to Moolah. Reign is recognized by NWA, but not by the WWE. The championship was sold to the then WWF by Moolah in 1983. Did you know that Moolah sold the belt to the WWF? That's where it came from. Kind of cool.
Yeah.
29 years ago in Montgomery, Alabama, the York Foundation, Richard Morton, Tommy Rich, and Terrence Taylor defeated Big Josh, Dustin Rhodes, and Tom Z-Man Zink to win the WCW six-man tag team championship. The trio would be the last six-man champions as the belts were abandoned a month later. 19 years ago today on Raw from Indianapolis, Stone Cold Steve Austin defeated Kurt Angle to win the WWF Championship for the sixth time. On the undercard, the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff, defeated Booker T and Test to win the WCW World Tag Team Championship. 15 years ago today in Tokyo, Japan, Brock Lesnar defeated Kazuki Fujita and Masahiro Chono in a three-way match to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. 14 years ago today, WWE presented No Mercy. The show featured the much-hyped debut of MVP. 13 years ago today in Tokyo, Japan, Hiroshi Tanahashi defeated Yuji Nagata to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And 8 years ago today, WWE Hall of Famer Tammy Lynn Cinch, this is a great story too, was arrested again and charged with violating a protective order, disorderly conduct, and criminal mischief after police were called to the home of her boyfriend, Damian Darling. This would be her fourth arrest in a month after being arrested on 3 consecutive days in September. She was released on a $25,000 bond and arrested again the next day on 1 count of third-degree burglary and 3 counts of violating a protective order. That's 5 arrests in about a month. And she got another one in January. So, way to go.
Surprising.
That's, her and Hoovertude and some of them. Wow. Could have a contest of who got the most, wrestling shit. And to finish it all off, it is a happy 36th birthday. I believe it's 36. I might not have adjusted that. He might be 40. I think he's 40, maybe. To The Miz.
40.
40. So it is 40. I just didn't correct that.
Which star of the day.
All right. And I know I missed Rhino's in there. It was a day or two ago, I believe.
Yep. So it's all good.
There you go. There's some history. I love the ones when it comes up with the arrests and all that stuff. That's some fun shit.
So once again, another info pack this week in history. We definitely, as I said last week's episode, we need to sit down and figure out how to put this into a separate episode where we can dive deeper into a couple of the topics and then skip through some. I think there's some meat on the bone to be had fun with. It's just getting the timing down and doing it. But thank you once again for this week in history. Is there anything else coming up with you as far as the trivia show goes? Plans?
Well, that I think for me, perhaps mixing this with that is kind of, I think, a possibility there. Instead of just because, again, a game show is better if you can do it live. So combining that with it, and it is a lot of work to do all the questions where this is not as bad doing it. And then going through it and then coming up with the questions is, I think, doable. At least once a month, I could do it to one of the weeks, or I could do it for the whole month or something, So
sounds like fun. We'll figure something out. Content is always great because there's always something for everybody. Maybe news isn't the thing for people who aren't watching the current product, but the nostalgia buffs love the history and could do great with trivia. So we'll find a niche for everybody. I hope everybody enjoyed Fantasy Warfare Tournament that happened last night on our YouTube channel. Chris Maloney joined Chris Jones and I last night for that. We ran down 16 of the greatest heel turns in wrestling history. So not so great, but rememberable. But we did come up with 16 in that regards. And this next Wednesday, we're going to do greatest face turns. There's some really big ones to look at, and some rememberable ones as well. Anything you can see coming up on that one that people should tune into, Chris?
I can't remember all the matchups for that, but because I was thinking one of them might actually top the NWO Hogan one, and I can't remember which one it was, but because I was thinking now which one will probably win out of all those, and which one has the best chance against that one.
Well, some of the contenders that we have coming up on Wednesday's episode, including the Mega Powers forming, Undertaker saving Miss Elizabeth, Austin not giving up in the sharpshooter at WrestleMania 13. So part of the double turn that happened there. CM Punk's pipe bomb, the reuniting of Savage and Elizabeth, Hogan's face, I guess, somewhat turn, but just the way the fans turned him at WrestleMania 18. Jericho making the list of KO. Virgil spelling the man being Virgil. And Randy Orton, thumbs up, thumbs down. Batista, thumbs down to Triple H. And, of course, the boss man cannot be paid off. So there's a few more in there, 16 in total, next Wednesday.
That it's possible the Savage one, because that kind of put a nice little bow on everything. There was lots of stuff afterwards, and then it kind of got, I like to kind of, once that happened and they had the marriage, to me, that was it in the WWE. Then he won the belt from Flair and all that. But once he went to WCW, they basically kind of went back in time, and Elizabeth turned on him and all this other garbage. So to me,
they weren't married then.
Yeah, but I kind of ignored that. But the how they ended, they let Warrior win, but they let Macho Man have a big moment like that. I think it was one of those ones. Yeah, it sucks that Savage lost, but it still was really good, especially that he was able to come back wrestling eventually. They worked that in, so it was a good way to give the guy a break, and really a great storyline. And it was I don't know if it was expected to happen then, because again, the internet wasn't really strong at that point. So I'm not sure if people knew that was going to happen, or because I think they might have interviewed Elizabeth a week before that match, perhaps. But that was one of those ones that it was, back then you didn't get to see a lot of old characters return for a big thing like that, especially when it's a non-wrestler like Elizabeth was. Because really, Elizabeth was useless, but she also was an important part of the Macho Man, his story. So to see her there and everything, that was kind of cool at the time. Now, I don't care, but at the time, that was pretty.
Yeah, and I'm a huge mark for Randy and Elizabeth, so that will be a tough one to not see go to the finals if it doesn't make it. But yeah,
as long as it doesn't go up against like Virgil or something, it'll be fine.
Chris Maloney will join us on Wednesday for that, and I hope everybody else does too. I want to thank you for being a part of this show. Those who are watching us right now live on Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook, thank you. And those who are not, please join us when we do go live. But thank you for listening to us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast from. Thanks to Anchor for hosting us and spreading it around the world. So until next week, we'll check out of here. And I'm going to wish you guys a good night. Let's play that.
La da 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 da.